Got sinus congestion? Looking for pressure relief? Well, stay tuned because I'm going to show you exactly what you can do at home to alleviate some of that sinus pressure and hopefully prevent it from turning into a sinus infection. I'm Dr. Czezowski, and if this is your first time on this channel, I'm a certified functional medicine practitioner, and the reason I created this YouTube channel is because my close to 1 million followers on Instagram and almost 500,000 on Facebook have deeper questions about drainage support that they can do at home. So this is where I get to dive deeper with you and show you and teach you why drainage is important and what you can do to support your drainage systems. Now let's start talking about sinus infections, or even just congestion. It doesn't have to be an infection, it could be congestion. And a lot of times our congestion is in our lower sinuses. Even though our upper and our lower sinuses are connected, what happens is gravity tends to pull down. And when it pulls down, our lower sinuses ultimately start to fill. Like, think of a glass. And if we're pouring water into this glass and it's filling, but there's nowhere for that water to go, eventually it's just going to be super full. And that's what happens here in our lower sinuses, and we end up feeling the pressure. That pressure sucks. And you pretty much notice it when you bend forward, to put on a sock or to pick something up off the floor. It feels like somebody's in your head drumming. Or it feels like you have a vice on your head and your head is being squeezed. Well, that's because the pressure in there from that mucus is very thick, ultimately puts excess pressure on our skull, which is what we're feeling. Now, why that's happening is because that fluid is unable to drain into our eustachian tube, into our ear, and down where it's supposed to drain. Now, before I show you the 3 techniques that you're going to be able to do at home in order to get this clearing, you always want to start with opening up and clearing your lymph nodes in especially the lower part of our face. So if you don't know which ones I'm talking about, go and watch these videos over here. I have a playlist where I broke down the specific 7. Now, why that's important is our lymphatic system is part of our immune system. It is one of the things that breaks down all of the junk, especially bacteria, viruses, pathogens, you name it. And so if we have an infection and we have so much mucus and inflammation in there, you better believe that's going to be a great place for bacteria to hang out because it's nice and thick and dark, and if it's super thick, the immune system's going to have a harder time getting there. So we want to make sure that our lymphatics is draining so all the waste products can go through the lymph, like through the lymph nodes, get cleaned out and return back to the circulatory system. This is really how we maintain a healthy balance. So that's the very first thing you got to do. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and watch those videos and do those first. Now, what we are going to do, now this is what you're going to do at home. When I said it drains down our eustachian tube, we have to first make sure that our eustachian tubes are open. So I like to do a couple ear maneuvers in order to make sure that the eustachian tubes are open and able to take that fluid for it to drain. And some of them aren't going to feel super awesome, but I promise you that it feels so much better afterwards. And this can honestly be done too if you have full ears or if you have ringing in your ears. This can also sometimes help, not always, it depends what's causing the ringing, but it can sometimes help alleviate the pressure in the ears. It can help get the fluid going, and it can reduce the ringing that's happening, especially if it's ringing because of fluid buildup. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with one side, and I'm only going to show you one side, but you're always going to do the other side as well, even if you don't feel like there's an issue on the other side. I still want you to do both sides because we want to maintain balance. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our thumb behind our ear, we're going to grab our earlobe, and we're going to take our other thumb, so my right hand on my right top of the right ear. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab and I'm going to pull my ear out to the side. Now, why am I doing this? I'm ultimately distracting my ear so that it creates space for drainage to happen. That's exactly what we want. So after I do this, and I'm going to hold this for about 20 seconds. After I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some light twists. Now, why I'm doing this is because I want to make sure if there's any fascial adhesions within my face or behind in like the temporal region, occipital region of my skull, that I'm breaking that up, because our lymphatic system lays just under the skin is the one that we're really addressing. So what we're going to do is we're going to gently twist back. I'm twisting my upper hand back and my bottom hand up. You may notice that you need to cough. It just means things are opening up. Now, this should not be painful. Any of the stuff that I'm teaching you should not be sharp shooting. It might be uncomfortable, and I'm definitely getting some drainage right now. You might feel like you have to swallow. You might feel like you have to sneeze or cough. All are fine. And if you don't feel any of those, that's totally fine too. So you're gonna hold this for 20 to 30 seconds, bring it up. If you need, let it go for a sec. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna distract out and turn down. So instead, I'm gonna bring my left hand back, my right hand forward. Now, like I said, this is one of my favorite things. I do this on kids, especially if they have like ear infections, things like that. This helps tremendously. And you might ultimately start to feel some of that drainage happening, which not a bad thing. Okay, so after I do this, now my Eustachian tube is open. We're gonna focus now on our sinus. We're focusing on the bottom one because remember, gravity's pulling stuff down. So if we can get this moving, it means that the stuff from up in our upper sinuses now has a path to drain. We always start, with drainage, with the part closest to, or like the first part that is gonna be draining. So this sinus is the lower part, is the very first part that's gonna drain into the ear. The ear is where it has to drain to. So that's why I started with the ear. Do you see what I'm saying? So we always start where it's going to drain to and then move to the problem site. We just got to make sure we're working backwards. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my left thumb, the left pad of my finger, on the inside of my nose, right on my sinus, like the zygomatic arch, my cheekbone. So right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right next to my nose. I'm going to take my thumb, I'm going to wrap it around my ear, and I'm going to distract my ear out. So I'm going to pull it out to the side, and with my thumb, I'm gonna pull down and out like a J. And I like to have my fingers up. You can see that I'm still pulling my ear. And I'm ultimately using the whole part of my thumb to push and pull. I'm trying to distract. I'm trying to stretch, or gap is probably a better word. Gap the sutures in here to make space. And I'm already feeling this move. So I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna hold this for about 30 seconds, and you may need to do this a few times. Now remember, we always do the other side as well. Now the pressure upwards might feel uncomfortable, especially if you have a ton of sinus mucus pressure going on in your sinus cavity. So only push as hard as you can handle, and when you're done, I like to just drag my thumb over to my ear and let it do its thing. You may also want to open your mouth a few times in order to get things to really move. I'm specifically working on the sinuses. I'm not working on the lymph in the cheek, okay? Keep this in mind. This is specific for sinuses. The pressure is deeper than if we're doing lymphatic drainage. What I'm gonna do now is, now that I've started to open all of this up, I'm gonna take the tips of my fingers, and if you have nails, make sure you're using the pads. I'm going to put it along my nasal labial line, so right along the nose. I'm going to pin with my other hand right along that fold, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull. And I'm gonna pull all along here. Now, one of the things that you might wanna do is put an oil or a lotion on here, just so you're not dragging your skin. Again, this is not lymphatic drainage. This is specifically, we're trying to go deep, and you can see that I'm a little bit red. I'm trying to get that bone, those sutures, to gap a little bit so that there's room for drainage. Okay, so what I did was, before this video, I actually put on some castor oil with some frankincense. That is my go-to when I'm doing any kind of, any drainage stuff, or even just as a lotion. I actually use that as my use serum, just FYI. So we're gonna pin, because I'm not trying to pull my nose. I'm not trying to pull the skin either. I'm trying to distract that cheekbone. And it's nice and slow. And you may have to do this 5 times before you start to feel anything. And then the last thing that I do is I take my fingers and I go and I tap all the way along my cheekbone. So this is how I drain my lower sinuses. And this is what I do on clients when they're in front of me. This is exactly what I would do on them. So instead of them doing this, it would be me doing it on them. Give this a try. It may take a few times, but honestly, I am so much clearer. I gotta go and do this side now and make sure that opens up just to make sure that everything is balanced. If you're here to this point, it means that this stuff interests you. So make sure that you always open up those drainage points. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch that playlist. I break it down so that you understand everything that's going on. And let me know, how does this go for you? Like, did this help? I can't wait to hear. Thanks for being here and happy draining.